Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, we're back. We are live. And we've got a huge show lined up today. I want to thank everyone for tuning in on Truth Frequency Radio, tfrlive.com. Everyone that's on iHeartRadio, TalkStream Live, TuneIn Radio apps, any terrestrial stations out there. And of course, we're going out live simulcasting on the Kev Baker Show YouTube channel. So however you got here, a big warm welcome to the show, wherever you are, whenever you are. Because I want to give a big shout out to all of our Australian listeners today. We've had our good friends Dan and Jess on the show recently, and they really blew our minds with some of the ancient archaeology and Aboriginal mythology and all that good stuff that we got into just a few weeks ago. So a big shout out to everyone down in Australia. And it's down in Australia that we're going today, because around the time that Dan and Jess were on the show, I've always had this thing that when there's a big event happening, I try and get the best person to speak on that subject, as opposed to me just being left to speculate on the headlines that are left for us there to kind of look over. And the Australian fires were and still are something that are raging on. And Max Igan was really doing some great coverage of the fires at the time. In fact, he was getting hundreds and thousands of hits on YouTube. And then something strange happened, because I had Max lined up to come on the show, and for whatever reason, and at the time I did tell everyone there will be a perfectly good reason for this. I thought the time zones might have got in the way, but Max never came on. Now, in the days that followed, we all can remember what happened on social media and YouTube when Max came back and made a couple of videos. Now, I told people at the time, don't be so quick to rush to judgment. Max himself had told us he's processing something that, well, I don't want to explain for you. So I've got Max Igan here tonight to tell us exactly what's been happening. Max, welcome back, my friend. It's great to have you on at long last. And I was in touch with you behind the scenes, but what happens off air, it stays off air. It's like Vegas on here, Max, and I never told anyone anything you had shared with me. But I'm just going to give the floor to you, because we're going to talk about this. We're going to go back and forth. This is really your first opportunity to speak to the public live, as opposed to uploading videos. And I know there's a hell of a lot of people out there that were really concerned about you. Some took it entirely the wrong way, and their reaction was very telling, more about them than you. But more importantly, the people who care about you, and people who have gone through the same as what you're about to describe for us tonight. And for anyone out there who doesn't know Max, he needs no introduction. Head on over to his website, thecrowhouse.com. Welcome back, brother.
Thanks, Kev. Yeah, it's a weird experience to have to relate and even to try to come to terms with it myself. I mean, I've still been trying to figure it out. You know, what happened? I mean, it sounds strange to people, but I mean, I had this light come in and hit me on the head, and people say, "Oh, it's some bright light from space, some laser beam from space, whatever." I don't know where it came from. I don't know what this was. I'm pretty convinced it was technology of some kind. I don't think it was any kind of light from heaven or anything like that. But what it was designed to do was to flip my personality, you know, and that's why I came out and I started saying, I'm the chosen one and the earth is flat, and all of these things that I started saying, stuff that I can't prove, stuff that, you know, I wouldn't normally say. And a lot of people thought, this is all about Max attacking the flat earth. It's not about flat earth at all. What it's about is the notion that you can flip someone's personality, because that's what they did. They flipped my personality. And the time leading up to it, that night I had these massive adrenaline surges. Looking back on it, it's like I was on speed or cocaine or something. When I look back on it, I wasn't aware of it at the time. I was just really hyped up and excited about this information that I felt that I had to share. And I published some videos that were very angry videos directed towards the government, like revolutionary type videos, you know. And this was when I was really, really hyped up. I had so much adrenaline pumping through my body. And I had to publish these videos. I had to get it up there. I had to put it online. It was like the meaning of my life to do this. I remember I was parked in. My car was parked. We had people here doing a yoga session or something in the Maloka we've got here. And I was parked in. And I literally had to do like a 6-point turn to get my car out, drive down through the bushes around the house, across the fire pit, across the edge of the steps and out this little corner of the yard, like to get into town to upload this video, stuff that I would never do to upload a video. And I wasn't aware at the time. I just had to do this, you know. It was like there was a force controlling me. It was really weird. And then after I got that angry video uploaded, I lay down in my bed and I had this huge flash. And then I just went into this massive life reviews and memories. It was like it was my memories and it was like other stuff that had been implanted there. It was really, really bizarre. But I look at it and I think, you know, the saving grace in the whole thing was that my eyes were open. And I saw this light come in and hit me. And it continued for like a couple of days. I had this whole massive life review and all of this stuff going on, all this information. And then when that went on for like 24 hours. And then when I lay down the next night, as soon as I lay my head on the pillow, I just had horror come through my body and I was just shuddering in horror. I don't even know, like it wasn't fear, it wasn't terror, it was just horror. That feeling of absolute horror. I don't know how else to explain it. And I was like that for like 7 hours. And I look at it and I think, you know, if I'd been in town when this had happened, if I'd been living in a normal house and I'd had neighbours that could have heard me or anything like that, I would have ended up in the nut house. I would have ended up drugged. And then, you know, 4 or 5 days later, I would have come good and found myself in a nut house being drugged. And I can see how they do this to people and what happens to people and how they can flip people. And it was an interesting thing for me because, you know, I was getting so much attention with the fire videos. I was reaching so many people who are mainstream, who don't look at conspiracy stuff, who were saying, hey, the government is doing this. We've got a real situation here. So they hit me, and it makes perfect sense for them to do it. And, of course, they couldn't take me out. They couldn't kill me because my videos would go viral. The best thing they can do is have me discredit myself publicly, which is what they did. And you know, since that happened, I've had emails from people and letters from people who said, wow, this is exactly the same thing that happened to me. I had one woman contact me and say it happened to her sister and she ended up committing suicide. Had another guy contact me and say, wow, it took me 3 years to get over this. Another woman said it took her a year to get over it. There was one woman who posted on my video that I uploaded, the Truth Trap video, and she said, this exactly the same thing happened to me. She said it was a rectangular light, and I thought I was the second coming, and I thought the earth was flat. She said, I still think the earth's flat, but I don't think I'm the second coming anymore. She said she ended up in the nut house for like 3 months or something. They tried to drug her, and she just had to tell people that it was just a bad dream she had before they let her out. You know, so I've had a lot of confirmation from people, you know, and I hear about targeted individuals. I hear about this stuff from people. I get emails from people all the time say I've been targeted. And you think, oh, yeah, you're talking about lights coming from the ceiling and stuff, and it's all a bit much, and I don't know how to prove any of it. And I've never known how to really deal with the concept of targeted individuals, you know, and then I got targeted.
Well,
and
Max,
now I
you've
completely understand where they're coming from, you know.
You've mentioned a couple of times it, in reference to this light, this thing that got you. And I asked you before the show, but I think it's important that the listeners will probably be thinking this as well. I mean, are we talking alphabet agencies, all the way out to something otherworldly, interdimensional? I have no clue, Kev. That's the thing. I have no clue where this comes from. I have no reference point for this. All I know is that it was a rectangular light, and it wasn't like, you know, you switch a beam on and the light beam's there. I saw it come. It descended. So, you know, what is it that you can see the end of the beam coming, like a flat end to the beam, and it just comes down and hits you? I have no clue. I have no reference point for this. I mean, it felt like an interface to a higher world. It almost felt like I'm living in a simulation, and this was my operator, you know. But I don't know whether that was just part of the dump that they put into me, you know. And like I said, it was a mixture. I had ancestral stuff. I had stuff coming through from like Hyperborea. I had the whole, like, how the whole solar system was created, how the flat world was created, how you can literally have your awareness between worlds, how you could have
like a situation now where we've got computers and we've got everything mapping the real world and it's putting it into the virtual world, and how your awareness is in between both worlds. And that's why I said truth is subjective depending on what you want to believe, because people took a lot of offense to that. But if your awareness exists in two realities and there are different parameters for those two realities and your awareness is between both of them, then the truth could be subjective depending on what you want to believe, and what you want to believe could determine which reality you're in. And that's what I was getting through this.
And after speaking to you, I tell you, man, it was a really long conversation that we had, and I could tell that you needed to basically have somebody to talk to, and it wasn't really a conversation, but some of the things you were saying to me at the time, it really started to make sense. And since that moment forward, I've been telling people, forget about seeing as believing. Believing is now literally seeing. Because what you go into anything believing, you're going to end up seeing it. We literally are. That reality is going to be there waiting for us now. That comes to the question, well, was it always there? Or has it been created for us, Max?
That's the thing. See, what I was saying with Wi-Fi and the interface. Look, if we're electrical beings, we're energetic beings. We are. Every thought you have is an electrical impulse that leaves your mind. We're all creating this electrical energy all the time, and we're involved in these scrying mirrors, these computer screens. What is the interface? When we think about virtual reality and we think about SCART plugs and microchips and how we're being moved into a virtual reality, what if they don't need to do it with technology? What if they can do it wirelessly and they can literally pull you in to a virtual world, and you could be living on a flat motherboard and or on a globe Earth, depending on where your awareness is. That's what I was getting through this. And how you could have a fractal universe. How you could have a motherboard within a motherboard, within a motherboard, within a motherboard. You could have a fractal reality, all electrical universe. So you've got the fractal universe, you've got the holographic universe, you've got the electric universe, you've got the flat world and the globe world that can all coexist together. That's how I saw it, depending on where your awareness is. And this isn't even your consciousness, it's your awareness. It's a different thing. So that's what I got through this whole episode, was how this interface is being created. And, even, like I said, there was so much information dumped into me and so many memories that came up, and it's really difficult to discern which is my memories, which is stuff that was dumped in there, which is true ancestral stuff, which is simply stuff that I've read. I mean, it was a complete mishmash of like my entire life and all the information I've ever had and all this other stuff that I didn't even know about. But the whole purpose of it that I saw was to flip my personality. That was the thing, to turn me into something which was the opposite of what I was. And that's why they would have Flat Earth and the Second Coming and all this sort of stuff. And even when I was doing that video, like, it was the meaning of my life to upload that YouTube video to say, I've had this revelation. And I couldn't not do it, which was interesting to me. It was this absolute compulsion to do it. But while I was doing it, I was thinking, but this is technology. And that's what I was saying all through that video. This is technology. And I said, I'm supposed to be the chosen one. I put little inverted commas there because I could see how they've done it, how they can trick your mind to make you think, you've seen the light, you've been selected. And I went through all the stuff. That's how they've done it. I can see all the points there so I can confirm it. And I can see how they've done it, how they actually put me in that place where I could believe it. I was the chosen one and the earth was flat and all this stuff. And I saw how they did it. And to me, that was interesting because now I can understand why people do it. Now I can understand why someone like David Shayler, who is exposing all of this great stuff about the London bombing, suddenly thinks he's the second coming and wears women's clothing and changes his website and he thinks he's Jesus Christ. I can see how they do it to people now.
It sounds very similar.
It was an interesting thing for me.
Yeah, it sounds very similar to David Icke as well, because he talks about how it just hit him. He got this massive download one day,
I spoke to David. I actually spoke to him for about an hour and a half. A couple of days after this happened, I contacted him and said, Dave, you're the only person I can think of who's had a similar experience. And he said this was nothing like his experience. He said to me, no, what you experienced sounds like technology. But he said the good part about it, Max, what you can be positive about, is that they didn't get you. They didn't get you because it sounds like they tried to upload you into a mainframe. That's what I was thinking as well. It's like they tried to steal my consciousness and replace me or something. That's what I don't like. It's really hard to even try to come to terms with it and figure out what happened. Like I said, I have no reference point for this. It's the most bizarre experience of my entire life, and I've had some pretty bizarre experiences. And when I was younger, I mean, I did all sorts of party drugs when I was younger. I did LSD, I did mushrooms, I smoked DMT. I've done all sorts of stuff when I was younger, and I know what those experiences are like. And this is not like any of those experiences. This was something very, very strange. And the unnerving part about it is that it happened to me in my own bed out here in the forest. Like I'm lying there at 12:30 at night, and this little square light hits me right on the forehead. I mean, that's pretty accurate technology. And, I've been sort of a little nervous to go and lay in my bed at night now, thinking, well, if you can get me here, well, where am I safe, But even that, I mean, I look at it now and I think I'd almost welcome it happening again, because I've got a reference point now. If it happened again, I could observe it now that I couldn't observe it last time, because it was just something that was happening and I was caught in the flow of it. And it's taken me so long to process this, Kev. It really has. And I'm still trying to process it. Like I said, I have no reference point for it, so it's a really difficult thing to come to terms with, but it absolutely feels like it was technology and it was designed to flip my personality. That's why it's been a shame to see the flat earthers get so irate about it and think it's all about flat earth. It's not. It's about turning someone to be the opposite of what they are. And it isn't a matter of whether the earth's flat or whether it's a globe or anything like that. I mean, like what I've said, or what I felt through that whole experience, was that is going to depend on your awareness, because both realities can be absolutely true depending on where your awareness is, which also lends credence to the concept of this being a simulation. I mean, it sounds weird, but like I said, man, I have no reference point for this. I mean, it's been great getting the supportive emails that I've got. I kind of expected the flack that I've got, but that doesn't really worry me. I mean, I think it needed to be put out there. I needed to show people what was happening, and it would be good for other people who are going through similar experiences. And like I said, I've been contacted by probably 7 or 8 people who've had similar experiences who really thanked me for putting it out there and said, wow, you've made me actually want to talk about it now and be able to talk about it now, because something like this happened to me and I just didn't, I thought I was going mad. So
I think the timing of
it's been kind of good.
The timing of it's really interesting, Max, and here's why I think that, because you've got this going on, everything you've described for us here, and at the same time, on the back of all the great work you've been doing about the Australian fires, with hundreds of thousands of people tuning in and getting really good information. It was hard to get information anywhere, but here you were really making waves, and to the point where the mainstream done a hit piece on you. Now you got the hit piece on you. You'll have people who hadn't even tuned into your Australian fires then going to see, well, who's this Max Igan guy? And I imagine the next video you were meant to make was your second coming video. And all of these new people, and all the people who do follow you. I mean, I don't do coincidences, Max. That's very strange.
No. That was the next day. That was like the day I got targeted, that night at 12:30 that night. That day, the hit piece came out on the news that day, and there were massive troll farms trolling my channel. And then someone put out all these videos claiming I'd plagiarised this guy, who'd actually plagiarised me. And we hadn't. I mean, he just used my words. He respects me. He likes what I say. So he repeated my words on one of his videos, and his channel apparently got deleted. He'd put a thing there to say it was mine, but his channel got deleted. He re-uploaded the video on his new channel, and he forgot to put that he'd taken the information from Max Igan, and so people accused me of plagiarising him, and there was a huge campaign. It was like a 3 or 4 pronged attack. There was the hit, where I suddenly flipped my personality, then there was the newspaper article, then there were the troll farms, then there was the plagiarisation thing. So it was a massive hit all at the same time, and the timing is remarkable. A bit of rain here, Kev. Hope that's not too loud for you.
No, it's okay. I was just going to say that to the audience, but Max, if we backtrack a little, because you said one of these nights you went through 7 hours of horror. Now, talk to us about that, because we spoke off air, and I know what the kind of thing that you were being shown and what you were going through, but tell us what was happening to you then, as much as you want to tell us.
Look, it's hard to explain. I laid down and I just started shuddering, like not in fear, but just in horror. I was groaning, I was crying, I was screaming. I felt like everything was dead. Everything around me was dead. I was living in death. Everything was death. All my clothes were dead plants, and everything was dead. All the desk is dead trees. My shed is dead minerals and just dead. Everything's dead. And it was just seven hours of it. It was horrible. And I'll tell you an interesting thing. I have an old cell phone here. It's a Samsung Galaxy 5 that I take travelling with me. And I don't use it here, but I take it travelling with me so I can use Uber in the United States, and I can use Google Maps when I'm in Holland, you know. That's the only time it ever has a SIM card in it. And that night after the horror, I just had this feeling that I had to get rid of this phone. I've got to throw this phone away. And I was throwing all this stuff in my bag thinking, I've got to get out of here, And I threw my phone in my bag and I thought, I'm going to throw this in the river when I drive past the river. I thought, no, I've got to smash it. And I put it on the ground over there and I started smashing it. I picked up a hammer and started smashing this Galaxy 5 cell phone. And they tell you that lithium batteries catch fire. Well, I hit this Galaxy S5, Galaxy 5 cell phone 5 times with a hammer. On the 5th blow, it exploded like a bomb. It literally was a white ball about that round, like a barrier or a lithium explosion. It was white. It literally blew the battery up to like, it looked like a Stilo soap pad. If I'd been holding it in my hand, it would have blown my hand off. If I'd been holding it to my ear, it would have blown half my head off and my hand off. Your cell phone's a bomb. Your lithium battery is a bomb. They don't catch fire, they explode. If they were to put some sort of electrical charge through that, if they could use 5G or whatever, if they could do that, your phone's a bomb. I mean, they tell you can't have this because it's too dangerous, and this is too dangerous, and that's too dangerous, but they're going to let you carry a lithium bomb around in your hand. And that blew my mind when I saw the level of explosion that came out of that phone. Like I said, man, it would have blown my hand off. It would have blown my head off. Now, I don't know whether they can hit it with an electrical charge or whatever, but there's no way that phone should have exploded the way it did. Catching fire, I can understand, but exploding like that was crazy stuff, Kev. And I almost want to go. I've actually got a friend looking for a Galaxy 5 cell phone on eBay to find one cheap so I can charge the battery up, put a SIM card in it, and video me hitting it with a hammer to show people what happens when you smash these things, because that blew my mind. It really did.
Yeah, I was very concerned when you had told me that, Max, because I hadn't spoken to you at that point. That was really the first kind of time you'd touched base with me. And
well, yeah, I wonder whether they'd put a bomb in my phone or something, you know, because nobody knows the phone number. I don't use the phone here, you know, so...
And I think it's important for people to realise that, you know, I've done over 1,200 shows here, and I'm not embarrassed to say that very few times have I put a target on my back with the topics that we cover. But Max was reaching millions of people with his videos on the Australian fires at the time. And that in itself, and what he was pointing out inside those videos and the people he was pointing the finger at, that is the kind of thing that can get you targeted. So, you know, the whole timing of everything, Max, and everything going on, I was really concerned, as were so many out there. And it's great. I speak on behalf of many people tuning in right now. We were just so grateful that you are here, because like you said in opening, unfortunately, people have gone through this before and not been able to process it, and we've lost them along the way. So I'm just glad that you're still here to tell us the tale. And when we come back on the other side of the break, you know, you done that video, The Truth Trap. And I've been saying to people during my coverage of the coronavirus, you know, it makes you wonder. It does make you wonder how anything is left there for us to find. For example, ran by Bill and Melinda Gates and the World Economic Forum that put forward just the type of scenario that we find ourselves in now. So when we come back after the break, we're going to get into more of what happened to you and this truth trap, because some of the revelations that you were shown or that came to you during what happened, they made so much sense to me. And all of us here in this, for lack of a better term, a community, you know, talk about reverse psychology or some dark quirk in the game. We've really been playing into what's going on the bigger scale the moment we all started diving into the research. So when we come back after the break, we'll touch on that, Max. Let people know where they can find your work and keep up to date with everything.
Yeah, you can find everything about me at thecrowhouse.com. It's all there. It's nothing to buy, no subscriber section, all free. You'll find links to all of my stuff there, thecrowhouse.com.
Okay, we'll be back in 3 short minutes, folks. Don't go anywhere. Now, Max, we're still on YouTube right now, so I'm going to put some tunes on, folks. We'll be back in 3 minutes. Thank you all for tuning in. Hope you're enjoying hearing what Max has got to say here. We'll be back in 3 minutes, folks. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm joined tonight by Max Igan from The Crow House. Check out his work, thecrowhouse.com. And you can find him on YouTube as well, where Max was really doing some amazing work and still is, covering the Australian fires. And it was during his coverage of that the mainstream decided, well, you're getting far too much attention here, Mr. Igan. And they done a hit piece on him. They accused him of saying the exact opposite of what he had been saying. And we'll be able to get into the Australian fires as the show progresses, folks. Don't worry about that. But I think most people were very concerned about what was happening to Max, and it's great to have him back on air to talk about this. And he made a number of videos that really set the internet into meltdown, or at least our little corner of the internet. Some people had the knives out early. Some people, rightly, stepped back and gave Max time to process what he had obviously gone through. And a whole heap of tens of thousands of people in between. And he's here tonight, thankfully, and he's sharing with us what he went through and what he learned. And he made a number of videos during that period. And one of them, The Truth Trap, was very, very informative indeed. And there's a few truths that people don't want to hear, especially when it comes to themselves, and especially when it comes to the truth movement that we would all loosely call ourselves a part of. So this truth trap, Max, and what you were going through and everything you were telling me about how this reality works, what we're really here for, why we're going researching these things, and every time we come across something, we have that eureka moment. And the people we're up against, they're no fools. Absolutely not. In fact, they're highly intelligent. They're about 7 steps ahead of us, and then you have to scratch your head then, because you reach a moment or a part of this journey of trying to be awake. I don't think anyone can truly achieve that, but you start to think, well, if they're so intelligent, why is it it's been so easy for us to find everything out? Max, talk to us about this truth trap, brother.
Yeah, well, it's because they want us looking. The interesting thing about that, and a lot of people took that the wrong way as well. When I said, the problem is in searching for the truth. A lot of people took that as me saying, "Oh, Max is saying we shouldn't research." Well, no. What I'm saying is that you need to be aware of the mental state you're in while you're researching. When you look at concepts such as the predator mind, and I'm not particularly into Carlos Castaneda, by the way, but the predator mind, this concept of this predator, this dialogue that's in our head that makes us do these things we don't want to do and it creates all these inane problems for us just so we can solve them. This is talked about in all cultures. It's talked about in American Indian cultures, in Russian cultures, in African cultures, in Arabic cultures. The Chitahuri, the Watiko virus, the social parasites, the jinn, all sorts of people talk about this. So the description in Castaneda's book I find to be the easiest description to try to convey this message to people. So what I was saying with it was that it's those flares of awareness, those little eureka moments, that's the energy that's harvested from you. If you can walk the path of the warrior, if you can face infinity without flinching, which is what I failed to do when this whole thing happened, if I'd been able to do, this is why I say I'd almost like it to happen again, because now I could observe it. Because now I have the information I need. But at the time, I totally got locked into the flow and I went with it, and it took me over. So I wasn't able to face infinity without flinching. I failed the test. But when we go looking for these things, like say we want to research pedophilia, okay, we know it's real. We know it's true. But when we go down there, we go down that rabbit hole, and when we find things there, we go, aha, I knew it was true, you know. Well, no, you already know it's true. That's why you went down the rabbit hole to begin with. So when you find these little things that make you go, aha, you should simply be able to observe that. Just simply observe the path unfolding the way you knew it would. Don't have those aha moments. If you can face it without flinching and realize that, you know, the reason you went down this rabbit hole to begin with, because you inherently know it to be true. So you just face it. When you debunk something or when you prove something, you just observe it. You stay in that calm, observant state rather than having those aha moments, and you free yourself of this predator mind. One thing I've noticed since the experience that happened, I've been so calm through the way I've been looking at it. I mean, it was total chaos for the first week, but since then I've been in a real state of calmness about it, and I've noticed that all my brain chatter's gone. I can sit in stillness now. I don't have to try to stop the brain chatter for meditation or anything. It's gone. It's like I've freed myself from it because I've been able to observe this. So that's what I was trying to say with the truth trap. And looking at this reality, if this is a simulation, I mean, what's going on here? We don't know. I mean, that's the only truth we know, is that we don't know the truth. And that's a really uncomfortable thing for a lot of people to come to terms with. I put out a video a couple of years ago called Everything is a Lie, which really got created a lot of flack from people. No one wants to admit that they don't know what's going on. I've been researching this 50 years and I don't know what's going on. I've got ideas, but I don't know what's going on. You know, it's when people claim they know that we have all these problems. So, you know, it's like it's a recycling thing. And when we come back here, we get told to search for all these answers, but it's just researching, and we come back and we keep researching, we keep following the same path because we don't have the information we need when we arrive here. We arrive here with a blank slate, but it's like we're recycled and we get caught in this trap. And the truth movement is about the quickening. It's about when everybody's looking for all this stuff and all of these flares of awareness are being harvested by this predator mind, whatever it is. You know, I mean, and that's the thing, you know, figuring out what evil is and where evil comes from. And you know, you look at Carl Jung saying, we are the source of all coming evil. Mankind is the source of all coming evil. But where does that come from? It comes from that predator mind. It comes from that need to know all this stuff that we don't need to know. Like I mentioned on a show that I did a couple of years ago called Giving Life to Lucifer, you know, the metaphorical biting of the apple. When we start asking questions about stuff we don't need to know, then we create this situation where we create this Lucifer system. We give all our power away to the internet. We completely lose track of what it means to be human. We don't need to know all this stuff. You know, what we came here to do is to experience being humans and mankind. To, you know, if you take it back down to the Garden of Eden, it was a man and a woman experiencing what it means to be human in this paradise, just to have that experience and to what you can do with that experience, what it means, what is life about. I mean, that's what we've lost track of. We don't worry about life and what it means to be human and what it means to experience love and companionship and life in a garden of beauty. We want to know everything, and all of this stuff we want to know, it's completely irrelevant. Why do we need to know all this stuff? Like we know that you can only keep a cat awake for 36 hours before it dies. We know that because we got a cat, we put it in a tub of water with this much water in it, we put electrodes attached to it, and every time its nose touched the water, it got an electric shock and woke up again. So we know you can only keep a cat awake for 38 hours or 36 hours. Why do we need to know that? We had to kill a cat to find that out. Why do we need that information? Why do we need to pull a rock apart to find out what it's made of? Why can't we just enjoy the rock? Why do we need to do this stuff, you know? The moment we start tearing the earth to pieces to find out how it works, we cease to love it. And that's what we do with everything. We need to know how everything works, so we tear it to pieces to find out how it works. You know, you don't tear a kitten to pieces in order to love it. And that's what we've done to the earth, and that's what we've done with all of this stuff, rather than realizing that we already know these things that we're searching for. You know, so why are we researching and giving all these flares of awareness away? Why can't we be in calm observation of the path as it unfolds? If you do that, you free yourself of the predator mind. And I look at it and I see that's what the internet is about. And that's what it's been done. And it's also mapping the world. We've got everybody with cameras, everyone with cameras and everything, everyone, Instagram post tracking cameras on your cars, mapping the whole world, putting it all into the virtual world. So the real world is being created in the virtual world as well. And depending on where your awareness is and to how much time you spend in front of this scrying mirror, how much your energy is being transferred into that wirelessly as to where your awareness is. So you see how this works, and we get trapped into these worlds. And how far down the fractal does it go? You know, if this is in a situation where I was being interfaced by a higher realm, or am I on a motherboard already? Are we creating another fractal, another layer, and moving ourselves further and further into the fractal? That's what I saw happening by this researching and researching and researching, rather than knowing that we already know the truth. If we could just be prepared to observe the path rather than get excited about this stuff as it unfolds. See, that's some of the stuff that I've said in my show without really knowing why I've said it. I mean, no stake in the outcome. This is the same thing. You know, I've always said no stake in the outcome. Truth is subjective depending on what you want to believe. Because that's what the truth movement is. I mean, the truth movement is a loaded term. But the truth is that nobody knows what the truth is. That's the truth. You know, but what we've got here is a whole bunch of people arguing over their belief systems, when really it should be the freedom movement. Let's establish the freedom to find out what the truth is, so we don't have to argue about it. You know, but it's all been co-opted. The truth movement. Oh, I've got the truth. No one knows what the truth is. Anyone who claims they have the truth is a fool. I mean, we've got no clue what's going on here. If stuff like this can happen to me, and I'm really aware of all of this stuff, you know, if it can affect me that way and they can flip my personality that way, I can imagine this happening to someone who doesn't have the information I've got and isn't in this world, how this would affect their lives. They would go completely nuts. They would think that they'd completely lost the plot. And if they were someone who was out there, an activist, like an Aaron Brockovich type person who's out there in the mainstream, doing the mainstream type of activism, and you're making a difference and they hit you with something like this, you're going to end up in the nut house. And this is what they do to people, you know. And to me, I mean, I'm fortunate enough that I can see it as that, and I'm fortunate enough that I got through it. And a lot of people have contacted me and said, wow, we're actually amazed how quick you got through this, Max. I think one of the reasons is someone actually contacted me and said, it's your shamanic practices, Max. And I'm thinking, well, I don't really do shamanic medicines anymore. But something that I do every day is rapé, which is a shamanic snuff, which is designed to decalcify and protect your pineal gland. And I look at that and I think, well, maybe I've just done that instinctively. Maybe that is what's helped me with that. I don't know, but I've managed to come through it reasonably quickly, and I've got these insights into what happened. And I don't really care what people think about it. I mean, this was a major experience in my life, and I was honest enough to share it with people. And as I said, it has helped a lot of people who've seen it, and they've been able to come out about experiences they've had. And I think it's a very significant thing to know they can do this to people. And I don't care what people think about it. People say, oh, bright light, or whatever. Someone even contacted and said, oh, you know, you had a meltdown, you took drugs, it was a bad DMT trip or something. I'm giving you an opportunity here to say something more plausible, Max. You know, in other words, you're saying you're giving me an opportunity to lie and say that it wasn't this rectangular light that came down, which is what it was, and I know what I saw. And I'm not prepared to say it was something else, because that's not what it was. It was this technology that hit me, designed to flip my personality. And that's why it's not about flat earth or round earth. It's not about any of that. It's about flipping someone's personality and turning them into something that they're not, making them think they're the second coming, so they will discredit themselves publicly to detract from all of the work that they've done. And like when you look at the hit piece, the fact that newspaper article came out on the same day, that's not a coincidence. There's no way that's a coincidence, because everyone would have been looking at me that day, and that's the day that I uploaded the video saying I was the second coming. You know, and I'm not, but that thing, look at that, and I'm, you know, this is so out of my personality, but I look at it and I just go, I had to do it. I couldn't not do it. It was like it was the meaning of my life, like I would die or something if I didn't do this. It had to be done. It had to be done by midnight, and all this sort of stuff, like crazy thoughts, you know. So that's what I mean when I say I failed the test. I wasn't able to observe it. I wasn't able to face infinity without flinching. I let the adrenaline take over, and it just did what it wanted with me. But it was a coordinated attack, like I said, because that adrenaline was building up from about probably 5 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon until I was hit with this whatever it was at about 12:30 at night. But it was building up that whole way, like 6 or 7 hours of this. And then I went through like, a couple of days of complete meltdowns and then 5 days of just babbling nonsense. So I'm really lucky that I had the friends that I had around. You can come in, Taylor. I'm really lucky that I had the friends around that I have, and my young assistant, Taylor, who comes and helps me sometimes. I got her down from Brisbane. I literally talked at her for about 10 hours. Literally, like I would have spoken in a sentence that was like 10 hours long. And Taylor was just sitting in a chair just listening to me thinking, okay, I'm trying to process what you're saying, Max, but crazy stuff. So
Max,
I'm just lucky I had the good people around me.
Yeah, the conversation we had, I mean, unbeknown to you, it really was profound for me on a number of levels because of things I've been seeing, things I've been thinking. And I tried putting some of the scenarios that I've had out there and fitting it in with what you were telling me. And it, like I say, really profound. And it's this recycle, this whole kind of loop that we're in. And at the time when we talked, you're spot on. I think it's a brilliant description. It's like Westworld, right? This physical reality, whatever it is, holographic simulation. And in this reality, there's something out there that can't quite manifest here, but we're literally a food source for them. And then we've got these cycles every so often. We've got the cycles. And now with the technology we've got, Max, and we may have been here on one cycle before, who knows, but in my mind, and it's just speculation, because how can anyone know? But it's almost as if whoever it is that is using us for a food source, they've now got the means, with us being electrical beings and everything else, to build this virtual world where they can almost cut out this recycle kind of process that we need to go through, and we'll be there for as their kind of prisoners, whatever you want to way you describe it, in this virtual world that will be no different to the one we're in now. And in fact, there may be some people in between worlds, right?
Yeah, well, exactly, depending on where your awareness is. Something that I got was really weird in the whole download thing was the reason you can't wake so many people up is because they're not real people. They're just like bio-robots, like Westworld, and that there's only, a small percentage of actual people here. And what the truth movement is about is finding those people, the ones who can think. That's what I want to round up the truth movement. They're trying to get the last remnants of Hyperborea. That's what I got in the download. How, and the way the controllers who run the world play it like a game. It's like a war game to them, and it's just games. They don't care about us at all, not at all. And they play the whole thing like a multi-level game. So you got level 1, level 2, level 3, and they're destroying the earth in a 3-level game basically. That's what I got in the whole download. And it was really interesting, like the day after all that happened and I said, yeah, this is like Westworld, someone sent me a document translated from a Russian website. And on the got in the experience, and that we've been culled to got now, which they say, but no one actually as well. He's claiming there were at least 500 billion people on Earth, and that there were around 10 billion people in Australia before they decimated Australia, which is interesting. But I've got this document here. I'll read you a little bit of this, just if you don't mind.
Max, you broke up.
And this came day after I had the conversation went off.
Now, yep. I'm going to reconnect you, Max, because you went a little bit static there. Hang on, folks. I'll bring Max back into the call right now. Hang on, stand by. If I need to tell him to put his camera off, we'll do that. Don't worry about it. I'll give him a quick call here. There you go, Max. Maybe leave the camera off this time. We'll try it that way.
Camera off?
Yeah, try it with the camera off, brother. Yeah, off. Off.
All right. Might be a bit.
Hang on, I'll try.
Yes. So I got tired hold. There, we good?
Here we go. Try Max again, folks. Give me 1 second. Sorry about this. I just want it to come through real good here. Here we go. Hopefully this goes through. We'll get Max back.
Oh, like.
There we go, brother. I think you're back with us. Are you there, Max?
I'm here. Yeah,
It's dropping in and out. It was, yeah, the connection was perfect for about...
it's interesting to get to this.
Very
Interesting to get to this interesting parts. They have these problems, brother. Isn't it?
It's starting to come back now, and yes,
I'm gonna send you this.
Okay.
You can, all right? You can hear me.
I can. Yeah, it's coming back slowly but surely, brother.
Yeah. All right. Well, it says here in this document that I got, which came to me after a conversation with you when I said this is like Westworld. I got sent this document from Russia, and it says here 25 billion people lived on the earth before social parasites conquered the planet, committed many crimes against the inhabitants of the earth, which killed billions of people. Today we are only snip genuine information about what happened past millennia. One of the endless topic of official science is the problem with population of this. According to data published in encyclopedias, 7.6 billion people currently live on Earth. This figure cannot be verified. It is believed there are much more on the planet, and these 7 billion are in China alone. There is an opinion that there are much fewer people on the planet, fewer times and even orders of magnitude countries is terribly hidden. There is also an opinion that about 90% of the world's population are robots in general. Our planet, as it were, is an attraction like the Westworld series. Moreover, this opinion was expressed by many people long before the appearance of the series. The day after this happened. I thought that was quite interesting. So, yeah.
Very interesting, Max.
That's what researchers say.
I don't know how well you can hear me there. It's weird how it's gone a bit difficult when we get to the population numbers of the world, the actual population numbers. But I'm going to see if your connection's a bit better now, and try and tell us again the actual numbers that were in that document, if you can, Max, because I think it's really important.
It says...
Yeah.
It said 25 billion. Said 25 billion people existed on the Earth before the social parasites took over, before they won the battle. According to other sources, 100 billion people to 600 billion people on the Earth. If you look at some of the work that's been done recently, there's been a garden, a huge commercial garden, the remnants of one that's been found in Africa, which covers an area of 105,000 square miles, which would have fed most of the Earth now. So, things... And... Even with the past history, the insertion of 1,000 years into the history, and all, I think even this is a red herring. I don't trust Fomenko more at all. I did a couple of months ago, but I don't anymore, in the wrong direction. I think history is completely different. I think there was a major civilization that existed on this earth up until about probably 200 years ago, and there was a major event which wiped it out, probably war. And, it's all been fabricated from that point. I think the rabbit hole is so deep that...
Oh, you still there, Max?
Oh, I'm still here.
Good stuff. It's dropping in and out. But, yeah, again, I just find it quite interesting. All of this has happened when we start getting into this thing. We're nearly on the break. So what I'm going to do, Max, is I'm going to call you back up on the break, okay? I'll give your internet, your router time to calm down and chill out, and then I'll call you back on the break, which is 3 minutes from now, okay, Max?
Not a problem.
Okay, brother, I will call you back in 3 minutes. So then, folks, yeah, it went so swimmingly well at the start, and then obviously we've heard the rain, and Max lives in a very, very rural part of Australia, from what I'm led to believe, and you can usually hear the wildlife around where he lives. So, I'm really fingers crossed we get Max back on. There's a lot more to get into here. But what he was really telling you there, to boil it down, to give you the kind of bare bones of what we kind of heard, What if I was to tell you that the population of Earth, it might not be 7.5 billion, and in fact it might have been much, much, much higher way before the last reset. And it's these resets as well. And I think it's really timely how, when we've had all of this going on with Max, all of the stuff going on in Australia, all of the stuff going on in California, the world has been crazy in 2020, right? It's getting intense. And now we've got Corona coming along as well. And then when you look at the history of these epidemics, pandemics, whatever you want to call them, there seems to be a 100-year cycle with them as well. So when we come back on the other side, we'll be getting into more of the Westworld element of the reality that we find ourselves in right now versus the new reality, the virtual world that who only knows what is preparing for us. It all kind of ties in with the stuff that I used to put out with Anthony Patch. This creation of a virtual reality, only it'll be nothing of our making by the sounds of it. And there's something far, far bigger going on this planet. And these sparks that Max talks of, the sparks that we've all felt as eureka moments and, wow, look at that, I can't believe I've just found this out. And we've all been there all the time. That's what it's all been about. And this is the truth that some people don't want to hear. But the truth is the truth. And like I've been saying to you, be careful what you believe in, because no longer is seeing believing. We've now moved into a world where believing is seeing. You can throw the Mandela effects into this model that we're kind of laying out, if you want to call it that, today. It accounts for that. We'll be back on the other side. Don't go anywhere. Okay, folks, now I'm going to rejoin, or I'm going to recall Max. So stand by, okay? It's time to go now. There we go, Max. Are you back with us, brother? Are you there?
I am.
You're
we live?
We're live on YouTube right now. We're on the break, but I'm just trying to see if we can hear you right this time.
All good. You got me all good?
No, it's still gone all choppy, man. I don't know what the heck's happened.
Thank you. Typical.
It is typical, but I'm hoping it's going to come back, because sometimes it sounds good and then other times it goes away again. I've stopped sharing screens with you, so there's no taking up the bandwidth that way, anything like that. So if you've got a phone number that you can drop me on Skype, then I might be able to actually phone.
Oh man, we got they've got one of those crappy little wireless phones, so I think it sounds so bad, man. It'd be the worst sound you would ever have.
It's actually starting to sound better on the stream now, Max. You're starting to sound...
You want to... Yeah, it's like I'm speaking in a small plastic can if I speak through that phone.
Yeah, you're sounding good now. You're sounding good now, man.
All right, well, that's a start.
It is a start. It's a start. We'll try and persevere, brother. We'll try. I'm going to shove on some tunes for just a moment, and then we'll go live again, folks. Don't go anywhere. Tell everyone Max Igan is kind of here with us. Fingers crossed. I know a lot of you out there send some really good intentions to Max's Skype right now, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes, folks. Don't go. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Hour number 2, right here on today's Kev Baker show, and I'm very proud to say that we've got Max Igan with us on the show. So thank you all for tuning in today. Remember to tell everyone that Max is here right now. He's telling us everything that he can about what he went through. And of course, Max himself is still trying to process a lot of what went down over the course of a couple of days, a couple of nights that he has spoken to us about and talked us through in the first hour of the show. So if you're joining us for the second hour, I urge you all to check out the archive, download this episode. It'll be over on YouTube as well. And Max, hopefully you're back with us now, brother. How you doing?
I'm here, brother. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, you're doing fine just now. And if all else fails, don't worry, because what I will do is I will, in the background, I'll set up a Zoom meeting and we'll be able to talk on there via the network and all will be good. But before the break, you were getting into the disparity between the numbers of people on Earth and this article you had found and our Westworld kind of scenario that we're in. So I think maybe it'd be best just picking it up, and I know you've probably said it 2 or 3 times before the break, but the number of people on Earth versus the bio-robots. Max, talk to us about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what that article said. It's estimated that about 90% of people on the Earth are bio-robots, you know. I mean, you can place truth in that. It's an interesting question. But, you know, when the concept of, non-active players stuff, you know, the fact that you just can't wake people up. I mean, it's so obvious the world's corrupt and people just walk around with glazed eyes. And it would explain a lot of things, and it certainly would, especially if this is some sort of a soul test or whatever, recycled into this. And there's so much to suggest this is what happens. I mean, so many people say our souls are recycled through the moons. There's an interesting video you can see on YouTube called The Death Trap, which is a really interesting video as well, which talks about people being recycled, consciousness simply being recycled into new avatars, almost like this is some sort of a galactic prison where there are certain consciousness that are just sent here that are wiped out of all memory, and they're just sent down here because they've committed some sort of a heinous crime or whatever, and they're just sent here with a wiped memory, and they're just recycled. When they die, they're just kept in this loop, you know, and it's finding the way out of the loop. And if finding the way out of the loop is to stop feeding the predator mind and to, you know, get through the cycle without, you know, with your full cloak of awareness, you know, to get through the cycle so you can... Because I sort of... Something else that I got in this experience was that if you could grow your full cloak of awareness back, I mean, everything that exists, everything that's ever happened on this earth, information's still there. It's still there electromagnetically in the field. It still exists in the water clusters, if you want to get into stuff like that. I mean, water has memory. Water is like the RAM drive of the earth. If you could somehow get your awareness back to, you know, full capacity, there's no reason you shouldn't be able to access these fields, access the memory of the water, access the memory that exists electromagnetically around you. You know, it doesn't seem to be any reason you wouldn't be able to do this. And I think a lot of it is the fact that we don't allow our cloak of awareness to grow because we're constantly giving it away by this researching all the time, rather than simply being aware that we already know and being aware of what this experience is, you know. So, you know, that's kind of a lot of what I got from it, and that's what I was trying to convey in The Truth Trap, you know. The fact that we already know this stuff. You know, if you really look inside you, you already know. Even, this is something that I've said even in my radio shows when I've done so many shows on spirituality and consciousness and trying to help people, you know, come to terms with themselves. And what I've always said to people is I'm simply trying to help you remember who and what you are, not even... I put out a video a few years ago called Rediscover Yourself. It isn't about discovering yourself. It's about rediscovering yourself and simply remembering who and what you are. You know what I mean? So that's what it's all about. And, you know, the concept that we already know. And a lot of people will contact me and they'll say, wow, the stuff you talked about on your show this week is stuff that it's like I already knew it. When you said it, I knew that I already knew this, but I'd just forgotten. And that's what I'm trying to do. That's the whole point. I think we've gone through this cycle over and over again, and we keep getting stuck in looking for the way out and not realizing that we already know the way out, and it is looking for the way out which is keeping us trapped in the prison. Because it's those flares of awareness we're giving away to this predator mind all the time, which is what's making us look. If we could just be calm and realize that we already know and simply observe the path as it unfolds, I think that is the key to getting out of this mess. That is why you need to have no stake in the outcome. That is facing infinity without flinching. As it was described in that passage by Castaneda, it's the capacity to be able to face with serenity odds that are not included in your calculations. If we can do that when we're researching, then we can simply observe the path as it unfolds and not get excited about it. And that way we stop feeding the predator. You understand how that works?
Yeah, I do. And like I said, I mean, it's almost as if it was a conversation that I really needed to have with you when we spoke behind the scenes, Max, and I really appreciate that because, like you said there, it wasn't as if you were telling me anything new, perhaps. It was that I was having trouble remembering. And that's the thing, the cyclical nature of things. And that ties in with the horror that you experienced as well, right? Because you were talking to me about how it's all done layer upon layer upon layer. And that fits with what you would call expanding Earth, things like that as well. And of course, now we've got this coronavirus rumbling away. And there's a 100-year cycle when it comes to these plagues and pandemics, it would seem. But I'd love for you to kind of talk through the audience. Yeah, talk to the audience about these kind of 100-year recycles or catastrophes or things that come along, you know?
It's interesting, isn't it? We had one in 1720, 1820, 1920, and now 2020. We have another mass plague. It's right on cue, isn't it? You can't script this stuff any better. But the coronavirus, man, I mean, it's the common cold. It's the common cold. They've just modified it in some way. And I don't particularly believe in viruses. If you look at, I've spoken to a couple of doctors in England, like Dr. Graham Downing and a few people. They're very intelligent people. Viruses, I don't trust the concept of these things, you know. Daniel 7. And I just don't trust the concept of what they're saying. But anyway, you look at the coronavirus, it's the common cold. A lot of people have got, aspects of the common cold within them. If you can use 5G to excite the oxygen molecules in the air, because it's all around the 60 gigahertz bandwidth, which is you can mix with the 60 gigahertz bandwidth, you can excite oxygen molecules and you can deplete oxygen molecules. So if you've got people that are in a state where they're a little bit run down, they've got a little bit of a flu or just a little bit, they've been out drinking too much, having too many late nights or whatever, and you can excite the oxygen molecules, you can start inducing flu-like symptoms in people, and you can tell them it's the coronavirus. You can give them all vaccinations, So it wouldn't surprise me if it's that. But I think there's more layers to it as well. I mean, there seems to be a real effort to lock down China, close the borders of China. I don't wonder what's really going on in China as well. I have people that have got friends who, work people in England and stuff who've got Chinese friends who've gone to China for holidays, and these people are just missing in action. No one can hear from them. They haven't come back. All the flights are closed. You can't, like in China, the internet's very restricted. There's no Facebook or anything like that. So you go in there and you just basically cut off. So I've got to wonder what's going on the ground in China. I'm hearing some terrible reports coming out of what's really happening in Wuhan, how there's no food, no other trucks are going in there, people are rampaging for food, stealing from people and all sorts of stuff. I mean, I don't know how true any of it is, but I'm hearing a lot of really, really bad reports coming out of Wuhan. I mean, Wuhan's a very, very developed city. A lot of people have described Wuhan as being like the New York of China. It's not like it's a little village or anything. It's a very major city centre. And apparently all the food trucks have stopped. There's not a lot of food in the supermarkets. People are stealing food from people who've gone shopping, and if they smell you cooking food, they'll break into your house and steal your food. So this is the sort of stuff that's going on there. And this is a big problem we face in all of our societies. As I've often said to people, most people in our societies are truckatarians. Doesn't matter whether you're a meat eater or a vegetarian or whatever, you're a truckatarian. And once those food trucks stop running, then it's going to take, about 2 weeks, and people are going to start eating each other, because that's the situation we're in. That's what they've done with cities. They've made it very, very easy to be able to depopulate these areas by simply stopping the flow of transportation, stopping the food trucks. And we seem to be seeing that in China as well. And the economic implications as well. I mean, when you look at Iran has got so many sanctions against it, and the only way it's able to really get any money at the moment is by selling its oil to China. That's the only people who are buying oil from Russia pretty well. I mean, from Iran pretty well. And now that's all stopped as well. So what's this going to do to Iran? How many military escalations are we going to see come from this as well? Plus the restrictions on travel. It's kind of interesting. We've got to be traveling next week, and I'm hearing about flights being stranded in places, and whole airline passenger crews being stranded in places because someone on the flight came from China, and so they're all put in quarantine for a couple of weeks. And So who knows what's going to happen when I leave the shores here. It's a pretty wild situation unfolding in the world, brother, and they're going to use this coronavirus in so many ways. They're going to be able to use it to shut down food markets or create the concept that it's dangerous to have food markets because, of course, that's where the virus was transmitted, this terrible virus, because we have all these open food markets and stuff, so we can't have that. We've got to quarantine people, shut down travel, shut down food markets, and bring out mandatory vaccinations for people, plus the economic control that it's going to bring as well by simply shutting down borders due to fear of transmitting this terrible virus, which is simply the common cold. It's almost like the war on terror, this one, man. I mean, you've turned the common cold into a pandemic. Yeah, man, that's a pretty good move,
And at this point, it doesn't matter what's happened, how it's happened, if it's happened. The point is that the crisis, air quotes, as it is right now, this can get a lot of work done for the people who want to drag us into this one world kind of system that they're building out right now. But Max, I want to backtrack if we may, because I think we need even more kind of description, explanation, your thoughts on this new virtual realm that's been built out right now, perhaps. Again, we're speculating, we're trying to make sense of what you were showing, and this ability, if you want to call it that, or this people being in two places at once, perhaps. And we can use the flat earth, and I know this is going to trigger people, and I apologise for that. But remember, don't invest too much in the outcome, folks. You were saying to me when we spoke about this, and it made a heck of a lot of sense, but however they do it, I don't know. But this inserting us, or taking us from here and inserting us into this new world, it very much determines the reality that we see round about us. And I've watched it time again, people that are doing flat earth videos, and they're putting forward information and evidence that actually runs contrary to the flat earth model. It debunks the flat earth, but in their mind's eye, in their reality, it's their truth, and they see it as flat earth truth. How can that be? Well, it could be if it fits into what you're talking about here, Max, because some people, that a part of their consciousness is already on that virtual flat plane, right?
Well, it isn't even a matter of consciousness. It's a matter of awareness, the difference between the two. I think it's quite possible for both realities to exist at once, depending on where your awareness is. And this is all down to your belief system. What you choose to believe is true. This is why I don't do belief. I keep saying belief is the enemy of knowledge. This is why I don't do globe earth or flat earth, because I can't completely prove either model. I can't prove any model. I can find elements to suggest that they can all coexist. Flat, holographic, electrical, fractal, globe, they can all coexist together. And it does depend on your awareness. It's going to depend on what you want to believe is true, and you're going to find evidence to support that, depending on where your awareness is. That's what I was getting through the whole thing. And the whole concept of what the virtual world is, I mean, we're operating in a virtual world all the time. Even when we're looking for information, we're doing it in the virtual world. We're not going out and we're reading books. We're not going out and investigating the world outside. We're going into the computer screen and we're investigating it all there. So there's this interface happening. And when you, like I was saying earlier, when you can think of yourself as an electrical being and everything that's happening with you is wireless, I mean, you can feel emotion when you walk into a room. When someone that you love walks into a room, you feel that emotion, you feel that connection to them when they walk into the room. You walk into a room where a couple's been fighting and you say you can cut the air with a knife. You can feel the energy in the room. So there's a transmission that takes place between you and the surrounding field. So what if these computers and these screens and these screens are designed to harvest that and to pull you into that virtual world, whereby your awareness becomes part of it and you can't tell the difference. And when we've mapped the real worlds into the world, how would you know? If they could suck you in there and, it's just all electrical experience anyway, the whole concept of what exists outside visible light? If a tree falls in the forest and nobody's there to hear it, doesn't make any sound. That whole concept. But what if anything that you're not looking at the moment doesn't exist? It only exists because you're looking at it. It's like when you look at the double slit experiment, things like that. Reality behaves the way you believe it will behave because you're observing it. So what if reality only exists while you're observing it? What if everything behind your head doesn't actually exist unless there's someone standing in front of you observing behind you, but then it only exists for them? In your world, all that exists is that which is in front of your eyes, but that which is behind your eyes, which is that huge empty space behind your eyes, what if that doesn't exist? It's all just a projection coming out of your eyes. That could happen in the virtual world, and how would you know? How would you possibly know? So if your awareness can be transferred into that world wirelessly, through these computer screens and through these scrying mirrors, how would you know that was happening? And if your belief system starts getting in the way, once you get into that world and you're on the world of the flat motherboard, then any experiment you do, because if you believe the world is flat, then you will find out that it's flat, because you can be in that motherboard reality as much as you want and not even know that you're there, because that's where your awareness is. That's the sort of stuff I was getting from it. I mean, it's all very esoteric, and I'm not saying this is true, but this is the kind of interface that I was seeing in that state that I was in when I had that moment, and it only lasted 3 seconds. Like when that light came down and hit me and went away again, the whole process took about 3 seconds, and I had a meltdown that took 2 days, But in that 3 seconds, I was thinking about all this, and I was seeing that it was an interface, and I was wondering why it was square. I was wondering why the beam of light didn't look like a beam of light behind it, why I looked like fairies, I was wondering all these things, and I almost felt like I caught a glimpse when, as it was coming down, I almost felt like I caught a glimpse of a room there with bullets. So I don't know whether I imagined it. I don't know. Like I said, I'm still trying to process all this, but it just made me see how your belief system can be in the way of your understanding of what reality is. You have to put beliefs down, and you've got to simply observe. No stake in the outcome whatsoever, because anything is possible depending on what you want to believe. The only thing that is impossible is that which you believe is not true, and that's what makes it impossible. So whatever this mess is, Kev, I don't think all the people on the earth here are real people. I think that there are a lot of bio-robots here. I think there's a certain amount of human consciousness, and what the internet and truth movement is designed to do is locate that consciousness, to locate the real people, so they can, keep tabs on them, do whatever, because it's only the thinking people that are going to join the truth movement. It's only the really thinking people. Even if they're involved only on the fringes, they might not be a full-blown frontline activist like you or me, but even if they're involved in the fringes, then it means they're a thinking person. They've got issues, they've got questions, so they're a real person. So I think it's designed to locate the real consciousness on the earth and to keep tabs on that. And for what purpose? I mean, we can only speculate.
And one of the things that you came out with, one of the terms that you said, I loved it, so true. The internet, it's a net. And we hear about how where attention goes, energy flows, but where our attention's been going, it's been going much further than being scraped for Google Ads, Max. It's been literally learning about us, learning what we want, what we desire, not for an advert, but to give us that reality that they want us to buy into, right?
Exactly. Well, that's the thing with search engines and stuff. I mean, a search engine doesn't just give you what you're searching for. It tells the internet what you're thinking about. It tells the internet what the current state of human consciousness is, what concerns people, what people want to know about. It gives away intimate details of your personality, a search engine, and everything's tracked. Everything's always been tracked. Everything you've ever done on the internet is still there. Even every edit that you made to every post that you put on your old MySpace page, it's still there. You can go back and see your posts before the edits. So everything we've ever done, it's still there, and it's all about mapping the human terrain, mapping the current state of the human mind. And the search engine results tell the internet what you're thinking, and it allows the internet to create the type of reality you want to create. And even when you look at the whole concept of the world being run as a multi-level game, the destruction of the world being run as a multi-level game, you know, it's us that are giving. If you think about the predator mind, think about the concept of the archons or the Chitauri or whatever that's doing this, that can't create, that only can create through us. It infects our mind and causes us to ask all these questions and gives us these inane problems. So we will solve these issues and thereby create the means to destroy ourselves that can be used against us. You know, all the war games and stuff we play online, it trains the predator mind how to play war games in the real world and how to wipe us out. So we're doing it ourselves. We're creating all the means we need for our own destruction. And it's this predator mind that's causing us to do it by this constant search for knowledge and this constant belief that we're in a state of scarcity and we've got to get, you know, one up on everybody else. I mean, you know, the whole thing is a trap. And that's what I saw. The whole truth movement has been a trap. And even with presenting the stuff that I've done to people, presenting truth information to people, I wonder how many of these flares of awareness I've been causing people, how much I've been helping them give their own consciousness away, and what I've been feeding through all this. You know, so that's just, you know, intuitively I've known that it's simply about observing and it's about having no stake in the outcome and simply remembering. So I've known that intuitively, but even still, you know, I could have done it better. I could have done it in a far calmer and more productive way had I been aware of what the predator mind is really doing and what the truth movement is really all about. And like I say, yeah, the international net, the World Wide Web. What does a net do? What is a web for? You know, and it isn't just a big shopping mall for people. I mean, the truth movement was created for a reason. You know, 9/11 was created for a reason. It was a fishing exercise. They wanted to find all the thinking people. I've said this for years as well, but I never really saw the depths and scope of it, what it's really been leading to. And if you want to look at it historically, if you really want to go back and start looking at things like Hyperborea and all this sort of stuff, it all actually ties in. You know, if you did have an ancient civilization here like Hyperborea, and you wipe that civilization out, you know, manage to freeze it over with an ice age or whatever, however it's done, and you had escapees from that world come into the new world, well, that'd be part of the next level of the game, would be hunting down these escapees. But it would make it too easy if they were just on their own. So you need to create a whole bunch of non-active players. So then you get to track down the real ones, and you create the true movement in order to do that. You know, they run it like a game. And when you step back and look at it, you can see how they run it like a game and how it's all been a fishing exercise. You know, that's what I got through the whole thing. And I think it's important to have that sort of a focus, or at least to be able to consider that type of a concept, you know, whether that's really what it's been about, and what the truth movement should really be for, and how it would be best to operate within that movement, you know. And that's what I tried to share with the Truth Trap. And I'm certainly not saying people shouldn't look for the truth. I'm simply saying people need to be aware of the state they're in and simply be more in a state of observation of the truth and observation of the path unfolding, rather than getting excited about it. I mean, that's why they create all these rabbit holes, so you can go down and just find out all this stuff, even if it's not true. They just want you getting excited about it and giving away all of this awareness into the field, into the screen. And if you think about it, if we're transferring our consciousness into a virtual world through these scrying mirrors, and you're sitting there researching online, getting excited about all this stuff you're doing, well, you're transferring that into the virtual world, directly into the virtual world through the screen. You know, you're not here in the real world. You're not getting excited about your children, getting excited about plastic growing, getting excited about all this real world stuff. You're transferring all that energy directly into the virtual world, which is what is helping create the virtual world. And you know, like I said, what is the virtual world? You know, have a look on your screen. It's pretty real. A lot of the stuff that you see there is pretty real, but it's all just ones and zeros. None of it actually exists. None of the information we've got exists. It's all becoming virtual. Everything is being transferred into the virtual world. So how much of our consciousness is being transferred in there as well? You know, at the moment it's our awareness, but when will it become our consciousness, and how will we know when that consciousness is transferred in there? Will we ever know? And what if all it takes is believing the Earth is flat for that to work. I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying anything against flat earthers, but what if that's what it is?
We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Yes, and we're still on YouTube right now, Max, but you're listening to Max Igan. Oh, and this is absolutely awesome. It's going to trigger many people, but it's truth, and it's Max's truth, and I share a lot of what Max is saying here. And like I say, the conversation I had with Max off air a couple of weeks back, whenever it was, really profound. And I think I can even look back at the streams I've been doing since then, the shows, and I can see a change in the way I approach things. The coronavirus being one of them. I've got no preconceived ideas about what's going on there. I have been looking for the information, and that is something I need to be aware of. That in itself is playing into the game. But I try never to tell people what to think. I just try to tell people and encourage people to think. We provide, you decide. I want to thank everyone for being so respectful tonight as well. You know, as opposed to rushing to judgment like so many did out there. Chat room has been amazing. That doesn't mean everyone agrees, and nobody should never get that way where we all say and we all agree the same thing. But it's about respect, and I thank you all for that. And I think, you know, if there's ever an indication on who's real and who's not, it's probably the people who do display and act that way. So a big up to all of you. We'll be back in 2 minutes. And I'm back, ladies and gentlemen.
You're screaming.
There we go. We are back. We are live. Welcome back, everyone, to the final segment of today's Kev Baker show. And we've got Max Igan here with us. We've been talking at length about what Max has been going through and what led to those videos that sent social media into meltdown. And I want to thank everyone that's tuned in today. One of the biggest audiences I think I've ever presented to. And that is, of course, because Max Igan is here. I want to thank you because you've been so respectful. You haven't rushed to judgment. You know, you've sat and you've patiently listened to what Max has had to say. And I think we can all appreciate now what Max has had to go through is a lot to process for any ordinary person. Max is no ordinary person. And I regard Max Igan as one of the great thinkers and speakers of our time. I remember the first time I got to share air with him, with Chris and Cherie Gio on their show, and it was still like a dream come true. And I'm really so glad we've still got Max Igan here to speak to us today about everything that's happened to him. And what I would like Max to speak to now, if he would like to, is give us an update on everything that's going on with the Australian fires, because we've built up quite an Australian audience here on the show and the network. I'm very proud of that because I love Australians. And Max, a lot of people have been following you for the fire updates. I myself, I try to give it a shout out. I try to look for the headlines, but it's so hard. It's buried in amongst everything else, and that's shocking in itself. But you've been doing some brilliant coverage. I was kind of shaking my head. I was brought to tears, actually, when I watched the farmer who was showing how the river doesn't run anymore. But talk to us, Max. What's going on with the fires in Australia, brother?
Well, it's still going. Like it's calmed down a little bit. It's pouring rain here at the moment. The weather here's been crazy, man. Like just in the first month, we had firestorms, hailstorms, dust storms, floods. It's just crazy. Like they're just hitting us from every direction. But yeah, I mean, the fires here, it's about Agenda 21. Ultimately, it's about Agenda 21, burning people out of the country, moving them into the cities. What I was saying on the very first fire report that I put out, I mean, and all of these fires are incendiary fuel. We've worked out what's in the chemical spraying, in the geoengineering. You know, even the weather manipulation that they do, they've been doing weather manipulation for a very, very long time. And they use strontium, barium, and aluminium to steer the weather systems. That's how they do it, through the dot radars, electromagnetics. There's a company in Australia called Acquiesce, which is it's a rain-making company, and they've broken droughts all over the world. And these are the people who can control the weather very, very well. And they use these chemical compounds in the clouds in order to steer the clouds. They quite admit it. And this has all come down on the ground, and it's basically incendiary powder, so it's caused the fires to be very, very bad, very dramatic. And it's been planned over like 20 years. They've stopped all the burnings, they've drained all the river systems, they've allowed this to happen. So it's been a setup. And now there's been even hit pieces put out where they mentioned me on the news, and they said, oh, you know, thousands of Australians, hundreds of thousands of Australians are embracing a ridiculous conspiracy theory that the fires are about Agenda 21. And then a couple of weeks later, they announced that, well, we think it's going to be unsafe for people to go and rebuild in these country zones, and the government should offer them generous buyback packages for their lands and move them all into towns. So it's Agenda 21, exactly what we've been saying. All the council planning strategies and all of this stuff, it's all about moving people out of hazardous areas, limiting planning and construction in areas that are fire-prone areas, and moving them all into town. And also opening it all up for mining as well. The population of the koala population of Kangaroo Island, 30,000 koalas burnt to death there, burnt alive, because there's been huge lithium deposits discovered on Kangaroo Island. So, this is what it's really all about, and it's about setting an example for the rest of the world. And the Australian government's been promoted as a government that doesn't care about climate change. Oh, well, wow, look what happened to that country. That's what happens if you don't care about climate change. You better do the right thing. Don't want to end up like Australia. So it's all about the smart cities, and it's all about everything that we thought it was about. And they just don't care, and they're going to keep doing it. They'll keep burning the country. I have no doubt about that. They haven't finished yet. They certainly haven't finished yet. I mean, like I said, we've got rain here now, but they control the rain. They can control the weather. They can make it rain any time they want to, anywhere they want to. And I've put up enough videos on my fire series for people to be able to see this now. I mean, I put up one, I think it was part 6, and it's all about the technology that they use. That's all it's about. And they show you the technology. They're very open about it. So, yeah, it's all contrived, Kev. The whole thing's contrived. And the amount of people that have been relocated, we don't even know where a lot of these people have gone. I mean, the whole concept that they're going to be relocated and put in safe zones, well, where are they? There's a lot of people. Hundreds of thousands of people have been relocated. I'm not seeing any refugee-type villages or tent cities or anything like that. So where are all these people going? It's an interesting question as well.
Exactly, and you've got that going on. People, where are they going in Australia? You've got the China thing, where what's going to happen with all these people? And when it comes to the Australian thing, again, Max, one of the things that blew me away when you were researching it, and I loved how you showed it on the screen, you followed your the steps you took to find this out, but it was the barium, the strontium and the aluminium, the fact that they go into sparklers. And then you hear some of these stories from the firefighters, and these are experienced guys. They've got no reason to lie, and they're talking about fires that they've never witnessed before. Things that are just so out of the ordinary, brother.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what's happening. And you think about it, that there's really, really fine nanoparticles, strontium, barium, and aluminium, that are bonded together. And I put a whole bunch of patents. You can look at the patents, and they show how they literally bond it. So it's got like an aluminium shell with strontium inside it or barium inside it. And they bond it. So it's a specially bonded compound. And this is in nanoparticles in the air. Then it comes down in the rain. It soaks into all the leaves, soaks into all the ground, and the rain evaporates, and it stays a really, really fine film of this stuff. And as the leaf comes down, turns into leaf mulch, gets on the ground, and it all turns back into the soil. You've got all the soil filled with this stuff. It takes a little bit to set it off, but once it goes off like a Roman candle. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing leaf mulch literally exploding, And, we've got, like, trees here that are very flammable anyway, like eucalyptus trees and eucalyptus leaves are very flammable anyway. When you've got this compound that they're spraying all over the place, well, that's what they're doing. That's why these fires are so extreme. That's what we've seen in California with the fires in Santa Rosa and Paradise. That's what we're seeing with the fires here. They're like fires that we've never seen before. And we've had big fires here. We've had fires that are bigger than this here. We've had fires where we've had twice as much land burned now as what has been burned in these fires. It's been huge. We've huge areas. I mean, twice the size of Belgium pretty well has been burnt here. But, like I said, we've had fires that are bigger than this, but no fires that are hotter than this. These fires are behaving in a way that fires just shouldn't behave. And even with the heat waves and stuff we're having, this is not a heat wave. We've had much hotter temperatures here in Australia. It's a very hot country. I remember when I was a kid, back when Fahrenheit days, I remember when I was a kid in Adelaide, we had temperatures regularly. There were 120 degrees, 121 degrees. You know, so even in Celsius temperatures in 1800, we had days where it was like 53 degrees, 50 degrees, 52 degrees, 54 degrees, 49 degrees, right across the country for hundreds of days in a row. Where the whole country was like a furnace. And we're seeing now, they're saying, Adelaide's just broken its heat record with an extreme temperature of 46.6 degrees, they're saying. Broken all records. Rubbish. When I was in Adelaide when I was a kid, it was 53 degrees down there. So, they're saying, no, the thermometers didn't work properly back then. I'll give us a break, The mercury behaved differently back then in the 60s, did it? So you can't believe anything they're telling you, but it's not the heat waves. We've had hotter days, and it isn't the size of the fires. We've had bigger fires. So what is special about the fires? Well, what's special is that when I was a kid, there wasn't all of this spraying up in the air. There wasn't all of these chemicals being dumped onto the ground. That's what's different about this fire. It's different about all these fires around the world, and that is their climate change. That's what they're using to promote the concept of global warming. The extremity of the fires must be because of global warming. No, it's because of all the shit that you're spraying in the air and that you've been spraying in the air for the last 20 years. That's what's causing it.
Now, Max, we've got Sonia in Australia listening to the show, and she's saying about how all the people that have been displaced, they're actually living in tents right now. And of course, that ties in with Agenda 21. They'll never be allowed to move back there. It'll be a fire hazard. They'll be moved into the big city. Of course, where all the 5G technology and everything else is as well. And for the benefit for people outside Australia, I mean, if you could talk to this whole water harvesting that's going on, some of the videos that you were showing, some of the clips where you've got all of this water and it's held back and the government have been selling it off, and it's criminal. It's not shocking, it's criminal. Right down to the fact that your government itself is illegal, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's a corporate entity. They're not even a legal government. Ever since Gough Whitlam declared the Queen of Australia, I think in 1973, then Bob Hawke enacted the Australia Act in 1986, the government's been invalid ever since. I mean, every piece of legislation they've written is invalid. But even bringing it down to it, in the Constitution, Section 100 of the Constitution says to be no infringement on people's right to water, reasonable use of water, include water storage. You can't just river system store it, use of other people using it. It's all in the Constitution. And whoever said any water, doesn't matter what politics are on paper, you can't water. It's just sad. So yeah, it's completely within an area around the middle of Australia in the lower called Cubby, which is a cotton farm, 75 kilometres across, which is harvesting the water of two river systems in order to grow cotton. And why they even grow in Australia, dry countries on Earth, is an incredibly hungry crop. Why are we doing this stuff here? It's criminal. It is. It's really criminal. It's just, the politicians in Australia, I mean, they're actually told that they can water when they take office. They're actually given a little fill out a form, how much water would you like? And then they'll sell it to whoever they want. They sell it to overseas interests, and that's one of the perks of being a federal politician in Australia, you get given water. And one politician blew the whistle and said, what is you're giving me water? I mean, what's going on? And she blew the whistle on it. We all got to find out about it. But how are they doing this? We've got, with this drought going on now, there was a deal struck just the other day, I think, of 93 billion or 90 million mega water has just signed on another Canadian company just the other in the middle of these fires. Still our water. We've got countries here that are looking like they're going out of water, and you got Coca-Cola rolling up, just extracting the water out of the dam, saying, yeah, we own it. We've been told we can take the water out of the river system. So the town runs out, so people go and cans of Coke. Yeah. It's crazy. That's what's happening here. It's absolutely ridiculous. And you can't own it. That's the bottom. Politician has claimed they have an ownership of water, right to own water as salt water. People from all the tribe of trees, really.
Now, Max, your audio's gone a bit funny again. And again, perfect timing, right, when you're talking about the Australian government. Really perfect timing. Now, Sonia, I'll let your connection maybe get a little bit better, but Sonia in the chat room, I think this is really good advice, for anyone who is watching the heartbreaking stories and images coming out of Australia and the wildlife that's involved. I imagine a lot of people are moved to help in some way. And Sonia, I think this is brilliant advice. Stay away from places like the main big charities out there. And if you can, find local kind of nature reserves, local people on the ground that will know best where to send the money to. Max, I think you would probably agree with that as well, right? Because people, naturally, they want to help when they hear about one of these disasters that's playing out.
Yeah, don't the charities. Apparently, there's been something like $7 million given to the Red Cross. They've spent about $2 million on the people, and the other $50 million, we're not sure where that's gone, saying they're going to create a fund for when people need it or something. People need it. They need it. I mean, the Red Cross, because they were going to give it to the farmers, and now you stand up for labor to decide where it will be allocated to go. I mean, it's all rubbish. It'll be allocated to their own paychecks, Most of the charities, they exist in order to pay the wages of people who work for the county. About 1 to 2% of what you donate to charity adds to where it's going. As the wages of people. So, yeah, better off finding people on the ground themselves that need it and being straight to them, I don't recommend any charities that you donate, honestly, unless there's a that's set up by the farmers themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And just so people understand what Max was saying there, if it was a bit broken up, unless it's the farmers or the people concerned themselves on the ground, be very, very careful where you are sending that. And again, some of the scenes that we've seen coming out of there, it's utterly shocking. It truly is. And then you hear in the background on Max's connection that noise, that it's not static. That's the rain now. And talk about sick. They hold back the rain, and then when the rain does come, it doesn't stop. It's almost like they're laughing at people behind our backs, only it's not behind our backs because we're in knowledge of what's going on now. What we do with that's important. And Max was so right at the time. And I've often said Max Igan isn't somebody that just talks the talk. I can put myself in that category. I talk a great game, but Max has proven time and time again by going to countries like Palestine, other places around the world, really trying to make a difference and continuing to try and make a difference right now. But Max can't do this alone. And then we've all become accustomed to being our keyboard warriors in some way, shape or another, even if we don't want to admit it. But there's only so much Max can do. And to the people of Australia out there who have been, getting their eyes opened by Max, I think you need to really join him and join others. Because this new world order, these governments that Max is explaining about here today, be it Australia, be it the UK, be it America, we're all having to face this right now. But it's one thing talking about it and sitting watching Max, explaining what's going on and him doing his thing. But it's another thing altogether to actually do something ourselves. And I take my hat off to Max for doing that, because as we can see here, he definitely put a crosshairs on his back. And I just ask anyone out there in Australia or whatever country you're in, whatever the cause is, are you willing to go and walk the walk? Because I think that's the time we're in right now. And we are in interesting times, Max, and this is where I'll hand it back to you, and hopefully we'll have a good connection for you to take us out. But we're in the year 2020, and these cycles, they come and go. And things are definitely getting very, very interesting from the start of this year to where we are now. And it's just for you to talk to your audience, the people who have come along specially to hear you today about what's going on in Australia, how they can get active, and the bigger picture. We've got about 10 minutes for you to lay that out. I know it's not much, Max, but over to you, man.
Well, it's interesting how to get active in this country. I mean, you're not going to get any remedy from the political system. Well, we've tried that. I mean, I've always said non-compliance is the best way to go. People don't understand how to do that. They think, well, if we don't comply, then we're not going to have roads and all the food's going to stop flowing. No, it's not about that. It's simply not doing it according to government standards, just doing things our own way. Something unique we've got happening here, I'm actually going to mention a friend of mine and a land situation that he's putting together. The Aboriginal people in this country, or the original people in this country, are in a very unique position in the world because in the regards to Australia, this country was never legitimately colonised. It was never legitimately conquered. The Crown doesn't actually have any right to any land in Australia. The government, the Crown, the Queen, they don't have any right to the land. And certain members of the Aboriginal community have kind of pulled a swift one on the government. They've a friend of mine who's a pretty high-ranking lawman in the Aboriginal community, he was thinking about this. It took him about 20 years to do it, and he's thought about it. You know, how can we get the Australian government to recognise us as a people and recognise they have no claim to the land and give us our freedom, and how can we get them to pay for it? You know, that was his plan. So what he did, he got a treaty. He went around and treated with all the tribes, and they got a treaty. They got this skin. The Australian Aboriginals have got a skin where all the tribes have signed it. So it's their treaty, and it goes back since before Federation. It's very old, this skin. It's a couple of 100 years old. And they've all signed it. All the different tribes have signed it. So they basically approached the government of Julia Gillard and said, okay, well, we've got this treaty here of all our people, and you've got your people and your constitution, and there's two of us here, and we need to sit down and work this out, you know. And Julia Gillard saw it as a great opportunity to bring the Australian people in under the Constitution and to recognise them as being, so we're all one big happy family, you know. So they put out this whole recognition thing, the Recognition Act, they called it, where they're going to recognise that there's two people here in the country, two lots of people, and we need to bring it all together into one lot of people, you know. And it was this great thing the government did, the Recognition Act, and all the Australians went for it. Meanwhile, the Aboriginal people had planned all this. They even designed the R that they were going to use, you know, so they got it all ready. And then they went and picked up all the T-shirts, the recognition T-shirts from the government, gave them all out to people. The government was really excited. Oh, yeah, here you come, quick, take them all out. Let's push this, you know, little stickers and badges and stuff. And they just took all the T-shirts off and they screen printed a circle with a cross over it, cross through it over the top of the R, and they put little circles with cross through them over the top of the recognition badges so that no recognition, you know, stop recognition, and sort of played it all against the government. And then what the government did with the Recognition Act was they acknowledged that there are two mobs here. There's two lots of law in this land, and they offered the Australian Aboriginal people the opportunity to come under the Constitution. So the Aboriginal people stood up and said, well, thank you for recognising that there are two mobs here, no contract. We don't want to be under your constitution. Thank you for making that legal distinction. And so now this guy has set up, he's got a 3,000 acre block that he's setting up under full Aboriginal law, and the Crown has no jurisdiction whatsoever on that land. By their own admission that there are two mobs here through the Recognition Act. So anybody in Australia who really wants to establish freedom from this system can simply treaty with the Australian Aboriginal people. They're now in a position where they can do that. And if you can get yourself adopted into the tribe, you can now be completely free of the Westminster system, the Westminster legal system, while you're on country in Australia, which is what you call it, country. You are on country. You're not in Australia. You are on country. When you are in Australia, you are like it's being in the state of Queensland. I once had a police officer say to me, you know, he's doing something. I said, what do I have to do? He said, well, you're in the state of Queensland. When you're in the state of Queensland, you've got to abide by the laws of the state of Queensland. And I said to him, well, what is the state of Queensland? You know, I don't understand what a state of Queensland is. I'm actually in a state of confusion at your claim that I'm in a state of Queensland. Because a state of Queensland is a mental state. When you're in the country, when you're in Australia, you are in the mental state of being in Australia. You're not in Australia, you're on country, because this is country, because it's not sea, so it's country. You know, so it's having that mentality and having that notion of where you are and what you are. So we're in a really unique position in Australia that the Australian people can now treaty with the Australian Aboriginals, and they can thereby remove themselves from the jurisdiction of the Westminster system. And, you know, you've got to be prepared to stand in that and know what you're doing to do it. But that's really what they've set up, the original people have set up in this country by this Recognition Act, the way they've played it, which was an extremely clever move by them. And like I said, it's a very unique position in this country because when Governor Phillip came here, as soon as he took 7 steps up the beach and put that flag in the ground and claimed Australia to be part of England, he broke the law. You can't do that. That's like someone walking up to the shore of France, taking 7 paces onto the shore of France, putting a flag in the ground and saying they claim Europe. as being part of the crown. What about the people in Poland and Denmark and all the other places? You can't just do that in France and say that you own Europe. Well, when they came here to Australia, there were 30 nations already here, 30 original people nations already here. You can't just walk 7 paces up the beach and claim that you own the country under British law, because this isn't Britain. This is Australia, and there's already a people here, and it's already been established that terra nullius was void. There was no terra nullius here. There was no people here. It was not uninhabited. There were 30 nations here, and you've shown that and proven that by the Recognition Act. So you've shot yourself in the foot, and you've shown that the Australian government doesn't have a leg to stand on simply by the inaction of the Recognition Act themselves. So this has all been planned by the original people to basically free the country if the Australian people can realise what's going on here and simply treaty with the elders and treaty with the original people. So that's the way out in this country, brother. And if we can do that, perhaps we can set some sort of an example for the rest of the world.
Oh, that sounds really, really awesome, Max. I'll need to look into that more myself. And anyone listening in Australia right now, and I imagine there's many.
It's amazing. There was a friend of mine who actually lost his house because he didn't pay his mortgage and taxes and that, and they really screwed him for what he was doing. So he just said, okay, and he handed his keys back to the government. And then when they came to repossess the house, they couldn't, because an Arakwal guy, an Aboriginal guy, had moved into the house, and he said, well, hang on, this is Arakwal country. If you're claiming you can repossess the house, you have to claim that you own any of this country to begin with. And they couldn't. And he managed to stay in the house, but they were watching it. They waited. He went out one day. Unfortunately, he went out. And as soon as he went out to the shop, they went in, changed the locks and repossessed the house because he'd left the property. But he was there for 6 months and they couldn't do a thing, couldn't kick him out because they can't prove any ownership of any land in Australia. The government does not have a single leg to stand on under their own Recognition Act. So it's an incredible milestone, brother. And that's what the Australian people need to become aware of.
Well, Max, I want to thank you for joining me today. This has been absolutely amazing. I'm very honoured to have been a part of this show, the first show you've done since everything went down. I'm so glad that you're still here to do shows in any way, shape or form, Max, as are everyone that's tuned in right now. I want to thank you again for everything you have done. And we'll be back tomorrow, folks. Don't go anywhere. Lucky and Dr. Brooks Agnew on the way. We're out of here. Now, Max, we're still on YouTube right now, and your connection is really good. And if I could borrow you for maybe 5 minutes, I really need you to read out the numbers game again with the billions of people, because I think that was a really important piece of information that may have got lost. If you have time, Max.
Yeah, all good, brother. All good.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, well, that was interesting because that was something that was sent to me after the event, which I found quite interesting. But what it says here is 25 billion people lived on Earth before the social parasites conquered the planet. Social parasites committed many crimes against the inhabitants of the Earth, which killed billions of people. Today we are available only miserable snippets of genuine information about what happened in the past millennia. One of the most scandalous topics of official science is the problem with the population of the planet, which no one really knows. According to data published in the encyclopedias, 7.6 billion people currently live on Earth, but this figure cannot be verified. It is believed that there are much more people on the planet, and these 7 billion people are hiding in China alone. There is an opinion that there are much fewer people on the planet, fewer times and even orders of magnitude, while the real balance of numbers across countries is terribly hidden. There is also an opinion that about 90% of the world's population are bio-robots in general, and that our planet, as it were, is an attraction like the Westworld series. Moreover, this opinion was expressed by many people long before the appearance of this series. We will not delve into this jungle now, focusing only on the population of the past eras. Officials drew the following figures, blah, blah, blah. And he goes through population of figures. He talks about the dungeons of Paris being filled from floor to ceiling with human bones, which there are officially counted as 6 million skeletons. And according to the official explanation of these bones was in the region of 1780. Paris was apparently sunk by the sign and blah, blah, blah. But he does the figures and he works out that in Paris at the time, there would only have been around about 20,000 people in Paris at the time. So where did the 6 million bones come from? which was an interesting thing as well. I mean, there's no way there should have been that many bones in Paris to even go down there. He also talks about the garden that I talked about earlier, which consists of about 105,000 square miles, which is in Africa. Maybe it was Tellinger or someone, I'm not sure who would have found that, but he talks about a garden there, a huge garden, 105,000 square miles, that was capable of feeding pretty well all the people on Earth now from this one garden that was there. So I found it quite interesting. And when you look at the Vedas and you look at other texts, you find figures of 500 and 600 billion people that existed on Earth. And as I said, there's another Russian guy that I'm in contact with who suggests that the figure is something like 500 billion, and that there was once around about 10 billion people here in Australia, and that Australia was completely obliterated, more than any other country, because apparently it was a centre of trade, it was a centre of everything. So, and I find it interesting that Australia is a desert. When I look around and I see Indonesia, I mean, if you just go onto Google Earth and have a look at the place, you got rainforest in Tasmania, you got rainforest in New Zealand, rainforest all through Indonesia, rainforest all around us, but Australia is this huge, bland desert right in the middle of it all. And yet, even in the centre of Australia, places like Mataranka or Pine Creek, you've got incredible prehistoric-looking rainforest, just little pockets of it, right in the middle of the desert. And I wonder why that's there and how Australia actually got to be a desert. And none of it really makes sense. But, I think history is very different, brother. Even with Fomenko's work, I think that's a red herring. I was right into it for a little while. I thought, well, yeah, there's that 1,000 years of history that we suspect is missing. But I think it's even deeper than that. I mean, I look at Fomenko. He's put out 65 books in the last 3 years. How the hell does anyone write 65 books in 3 years?
That is a lot of work, man.
These are big books, man. These are 500 and 600 page books. These aren't little books. These are very detailed books of, talking about the historical narrative. I don't know how one person can do that. So I think Fomenko is a team of people sitting in a little room in Israel putting out this information for people. But
you could be right there, brother. You could be right now. I don't want to keep you much longer, but there was one thing that people were asking, and it's who it is that is using us as this food source. And I've seen people saying, is it the elites? And I tend to think you call them the jinn, call them demons, call them archons, whatever you want to call them, depending on what people believe in. Is that more the kind of thing you're talking about, Max?
I think so. I think it's more something like that. I think, I suspect that we were invaded long ago. Where they come from is another question. Who they are is another question. I don't think most of the people running the world are truly human. I really don't. I don't think they could possibly do the things they do if they were. But I think the food that they harvest from us is an energy food. Whether they literally eat us, is another question. I wouldn't be surprised if they do. And even if you did have, imagine if you had a whole bunch of biological robots like avatars that were being driven by a consciousness. These people could be literally playing a game on a higher level, or they could be imprisoned somewhere or whatever. But they're simply, they're not bodies with a soul. If you were growing cattle, it would be a great way to grow cattle, wouldn't it? If you were just going to do that, bang, you could just harvest them and it wouldn't matter because you'd grown them. There's all sorts of concepts of that, but you can debate all you want and come up with any type of scenario that will seem plausible, but you can't prove any of it, is the thing. But I suspect that there is, Dave Icke will say it's reptiles, other people will say it's archons, the Africans will say it's the Chitahuri, the Arabs will say it's the jinn, the American Indians will say it's the Wetiko virus, the parasitic mind that causes us to do things we don't want to do. You can speculate it on any level and really not come up with an answer, Kev, is the problem. Like I've often said to people, I can prove it's whoever you want to believe it is, but the question is, how do you free yourself from it? And I've found the best way to free yourself from it is stillness, internal stillness, and observe the path as it unfolds. I'm not saying don't search. I'm not saying don't search for the truth. Don't continue to gain knowledge. But I'm simply saying observe the knowledge as you gain it. Don't get excited about it. Have that stillness and calmness as you walk through the path. That is the path of the warrior. That is the only way to free yourself of this predator mind, to be able to get into a position where hopefully you won't have to speculate on what it is. Hopefully you will have enough awareness to simply be able to see it for what it is. And I think it's not going to be until we get to that position that we're actually going to be able to answer those questions. You know, the real truth cannot be told. The real truth must be realized. And if you were to tell people how deep the rabbit hole goes, they simply would not believe you to begin with. So it's counterproductive to even try to tell people the truth. It has to be realized for themselves, and it will only be realized through stillness and calm observation of the path as it unfolds. That's what I've found through my life experience anyway.
Well, I'm going to be continuing to follow Max on his path on thecrowhouse.com and on his YouTube channel here on YouTube. Max, thank you so much for today, and I think it's only apt for us to sign off in Lakesh, brother.
Yeah, you too, brother. In Lakesh, and thank you for letting me go through that, and thank you for understanding it too, because I mean, I'm having, like I said, I'm having a difficult time processing it. And it isn't anything about attacking the flat earth or anything like that. Even when I was saying about what you want to believe, why it's dangerous to believe, different things. I mean, ultimately, it doesn't make any difference to freedom what shape this realm is. What makes a difference to freedom is the state of our inner consciousness. That's what will get us free. And it's I don't need to know what the shape of this realm is, or even what this realm is. What I need to know is what I am, because that is the way out of the realm. Of that, I'm completely convinced. So I think all the rest of it is red herrings to lead us away from ourselves. And thank you so much, Kev, for having me on, and for allowing me to go through that and to still be trying to come to terms with it. And I don't have all the answers because I'm still trying to figure it out myself. I have no reference point for this experience. But thank you for your understanding. And yeah, thank you for allowing me to come on and talk about it. A lot of people, I mean, I was surprised how many people it shocked. I mean, I got an email from a woman on Twitter. She said, Max, you broke the internet. I didn't realize how many people actually paid attention and listened to the show. So yeah, thank you for letting me go through it. And I think it was important to make it public and to go through it publicly as well, because, you know, this stuff actually happens, and it's important that people have some sort of a reference point for it. And like I said, I don't care who doesn't believe me or whatever. I mean, it is what it is. I'm still trying to figure it out. But hey, I'm still here, and thanks for having me on. And yeah, in Lakesh.
Absolutely, brother. We're out of here.